Well, top of the morning to ye all, lads and lasses. Hope you had a lovely St. Patrick's Day. So we are now in week, what is it, 11 now? And that's the totality of the course, but in terms of 1102, this is the third week. So the past 2 weeks, you guys had some stories to read. John Updike, Alice Walker, William Faulkner, and then the three excerpts from the Brothers Grimm, Chang Tzu, and Aesop as well. Uh, and you had to do questions relating to them at the end of the stories and the backpack literature textbook. This week, we're going to introduce our first brief literary analysis assignment. You're going to read Young Goodman Brown in the textbook. It's by Nathaniel Hawthorne. You could check this week's announcement in Blackboard to get all the details about the pages, where you could find it, all that good stuff. And you could find the assignment as well on the announcement for this week. What I'd like you to do, how I'd like you to investigate the story. Your topic is assigned, okay, as well. It's Hawthorne's writing during the 19th century, and he, even for then, and I'm not an expert on linguistics or how language has changed over the centuries, other than having read a lot, but even to me, Hawthorne kind of writes in this archaic throwback style, if you will. A lot of these and thous and kind of heavy, convoluted syntax. Very, very dense. He's a dense writer. His ancestor was a man named Hathorne. I think Hawthorne added the W later on in life. I could be wrong on that. I might be getting him confused with Faulkner, because Faulkner did. He added the U to his name. His ancestor was Faulkner, but without the U, Falkner, and Faulkner added the U eventually. So you might want to check me on that with Hawthorne. But in any case, his ancestor was one of the original sort of forefathers, or a man of high esteem and regard during the Salem witch trials. So Hawthorne, Nathaniel Hawthorne, in his stories, you can very much kind of get a glimpse of how he is a product of that kind of Puritans mentality. What I mean by that, the Puritans, the Pilgrims, they were a type of Puritan. The Pilgrims that we know who came over in the 17th century on the Mayflower, landed at Plymouth Rock, off the coast of Massachusetts colony. So the Puritans are people who are, and those of you who are Baptists, you know that Baptists, Puritans, these are all kind of offshoots of Protestantism begun by Martin Luther in the 16th century in England, the Protestant Reformation. We won't go into a history lesson necessarily, but some differences between, say, Protestants, Baptists, Puritans, and Catholics. There are some big ones. I myself am a Catholic, but I understand this kind of Puritan mentality. The kind of idea that idle hands are the devil's plaything. If you're not working, you are sinning. Puritans are kind of, we have that word puritanical, which means extremely strict in a broad sense. So see how that's playing in the story, this kind of Puritan ethos of you're constantly being beset by the devil and evil, and you have to be on your guard at all times, lest you become infected. Even your who you thought were your friends and your family could be conspiring against you. Your very soul could be conspiring against yourself. So we see how in those of you who are Christian of one stripe or another, you know that the devil in Judeo-Christian tradition, sure in other traditions as well, is very insidious. He's very calculating. He's behind the scenes, kind of manipulating, like the serpent from the Garden of Eden. The serpent kind of insinuates his way into Eve's notice and corrupts from there. Um, but Hawthorne isn't really championing this kind of puritanical ethos necessarily. To me, as I read the story, young Goodman Brown, he's kind of critiquing it. To me, he kind of seems to be saying, okay, we should be careful, we should be on our guard, we don't want the devil at our doorstep corrupting our souls. But let's not get a little overzealous and think that, look left, look right, he's everywhere, the devil, he's everywhere trying to kill us all, okay? What happens when you become a little too worked up or exercised by your moral zeal? Uh, we see this not just in religious circles, but in any kind of ideology, or you could see this in activism today. People get very worked up. They're really trying to get after the thing that is ruining society. Uh, and usually these movements kind of bubble up and, they seem effective and reasonable at first, but then they just go haywire. My humble opinion, at least. You could say otherwise if you believe that the case. So to me, the story is kind of Hawthorne. How would Hawthorne look at the world today with some of our political, social movements going on? He'd probably say something like, okay, you guys have a point, but man, oh man, don't get carried away with yourself. Okay. Uh, that's what he's saying about this kind of reactionary mentality during Puritan New England during this time in Salem Village. Uh, our protagonist, Goodman Brown, is he kind of a naive, credulous dupe? Or is he someone of true moral integrity who really is seeing the world as it is? It's a corrupt, loathsome place. He can't trust anybody. His sweet wife, Faith, she's the only pure thing, or is she the only pure thing? The townspeople he meets, the deacon, and others, what happens to them at the end of the story? Where are they? In the woods, doing these rituals and incantations. The woods, by the way, is kind of an archetype for disorder and mystery and corruption. Uh, Read any story, and you know that once the heroes or the traveling band of misfits goes into the woods, things change. What you thought was real and what you thought you had a grip on, okay, it all gets thrown haywire, okay? There's a reason why witches and other monsters live in the woods and do their evil, nefarious deeds in the woods, okay? It's a dark, thick place, a place where the light can't penetrate. Think of the Blair Witch Project. They get lost in the woods, okay? It's a theme, it's a trope, an archetype that plays itself through any story that's kind of hinging on a kind of archetypal, essential framework, narrative framework. So see how all that's playing out in Young Goodman Brown. Now, it is a difficult story, but it is a story that has a profound message, and it might be even a little ambiguous. See where Hawthorne is coming down. What message does he seem to be telling you? Is he saying, as I seem to think, be cautious, be on your guard, but don't let your zeal get the better of you, because you're going to start seeing ghosts, phantoms, devils everywhere. You're going to become some whack job conspiracy theorist, okay? It's everywhere. It's out to get you, man. Okay. Is that what he's saying? Or is he sincerely saying, the devil is everywhere? I cast ye out, okay? Get behind me, Satan, or whatnot. So I'm interested to see how you guys react to this story. It is a difficult story, but, if you are concerned with issues of good and evil, God, the devil, if that kind of informs your imagination, as it does mine, I think that stuff is endlessly interesting. this is the story for you, and you guys are going to dig into it and really get something out of it, I hope. So the stories last week, Miss Evans said you guys had some good discussions on that about Faulkner, a kind of macabre gothic story all its own with Emily and Homer Barron. True love never dies, I guess. What a character, right? That's an interesting story about the individual and society, okay? And kind of an individual stuck in her own old ways while society is kind of changing around her. And if you're not changing with the times, as it were, you're going to be left behind. Is Faulkner, I wonder, and I checked in on some of the blogs and gave some comments as of Sunday, recording this as of Sunday, the 18th. Is Faulkner, I wonder, kind of lamenting the new age progress, society kind of being more progressive in some senses, or is he critiquing Emily herself as being this kind of ossified dinosaur? Okay, get with it, girl. Okay, and it's interesting. Faulkner writes some really kind of grotesque characters, and his stories are kind of spooky and very strange, very complicated too. And then the Walker story I really enjoy as well. I like how the Alice Walker story comments on female African American identity. Is it this kind of, and to me, she seems to be kind of maybe stacking the deck to one side of that identity. The traditional American Southern black identity versus the kind of, woke social justice warrior that we have in The Other Daughter. So it seems to be kind of a vis-a-vis traditional, whatever that is, traditional modes of expressing your heritage and identity versus this kind of uber progressive iteration of expressing black female African American identity. And is Walker trying to, is she's tipping her hand on one side of the scale, I wonder. Is she trying to reconcile those two identities and saying it's all part of the overall tapestry of African American, female African American identity, most specifically? So really interesting stories. Faulkner touches a lot on race as well, being a man from Mississippi. His ancestors fought in the Civil War. A lot of his stories have to do with that. So I thought those are two really interesting stories to have in conjunction with each other. So I hope you guys got a lot out of it. And man, I can't wait to see what you had to say during after you've read the Hawthorne story. Hawthorne is just so awesome. I love that gothic romantic writer in Hawthorne and Melville. Wrote Moby Dick, Walt Whitman and Emerson and Thoreau, Washington Irving, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, all that stuff just really speaks to me. So I hope you dig it, guys. I'm going to be out of town in New Orleans this week. Now, I'll be answering email. If you need to reach me for anything, don't hesitate. Go ahead and reach me. I'm just not going to be nose to the grindstone grading necessarily each and every day. I'm going to get I'm going to get the Updike and the old discussion forum grades out to you by the beginning of the week before I go out of town, so don't worry about that. The Walker-Faulkner assignment I'll probably get to next week, so just letting you know about that. So don't hesitate to contact me, email me if you need anything, and I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I don't have any Hakuna Matata this week. I do have a GNTC shirt, though. Spring Fling from a few years ago. And I'm still wearing my green. Pinch, pinch. Okay. See you later.